was when I moved to Rome, Italy, back in 2000 to go to school there. Now, I like to travel light, and so what I did is I got one big suitcase, which I still use, and I put everything I thought I was going to need in that suitcase and nothing more. I promised myself that I wasn't going to take anything more than that one suitcase. And so I took the bare essentials. I took underwear, I took clothing, I took shoes, I took a Bible. I figured you could find them over there, but I took one anyway. I took my prayer book, and the most essential thing that I took was my episode guide to The Simpsons. Because I was afraid that it was my favorite show, and it was back when it was funny and relevant, not like it's been for the last 15 years or so. And I took that episode guide, and that was what I took. I took my laptop computer, and that was it. My entire life was in this suitcase. And that was what I went to Rome with. And of course, let me make an aside there. It was really good that I took the episode guide, because you know how I learned Italian? I bought episodes of The Simpsons in Italian. So my Italian sounds like Homer Simpson over there. The Italians thought I was brilliant. Anyway, it actually is a very great accent in Italy, so it's okay. So anyway, over the course of the 4 years, I studied, and I ate a lot of pasta, and I collected things, and after 4 years, it was time to come home. Now, do you think I brought home one suitcase full of stuff? Do you think I even had one suitcase full of stuff? Of course not. I had collected things for 4 years. I was so surprised at how much stuff I had. Carpet, I had furniture. By that point, I had 200 pounds of books that I had bought, which are in the garage, actually. I shipped them back over, and when I came home, I had to ship a picture, and I had 3 suitcases, and I had a huge steamer trunk full of books, and I had all this other stuff that took me 3 weeks to give away to other seminarians. And that's basically how you got your stuff, is you scavenged the other guys. And so I was really surprised at the end of my just 4 years being in a foreign country how much stuff I had accumulated over that time. And if any of you in here have ever moved, you know what I'm talking about. You know that when you're moving and you go through those boxes and you open up those boxes and you're like, wow, I thought that was gone. Or you accumulate all of those things, all of those pictures, and you come across something that you didn't realize that you had. And then you have to make the decision, don't you? You have to make the decision of what to keep and what to get rid of. In fact, even when I moved here to St. Mary's last summer, I had to rent a U-Haul for the stuff that I collected over the last 4 years. Not a big U-Haul, but a little one. But still, I had to have a U-Haul, so I've graduated from a suitcase to a steamer trunk to a U-Haul. And I bet you every single one of us in here have that same experience. Now, the reason that I bring this up is because it's actually kind of nice to move in some ways, because you got to go through that stuff. Otherwise, it just sits there and collects dust. And it doesn't come out until you move, or you just get tired of the piles of stuff, especially if you're a pack rat. I know that there are some pack rats in here. I know who you are. Anyway, I think it's very cathartic and very cleansing to go through those things and to throw things out. And I have to go through things about 3 or 4 times before I finally get down to the pile of stuff that I'm going to take to the next place. That is exactly what our spiritual lives are like. You see, all of us begin this life with a little bit of baggage. And we get that baggage kind of taken care of in baptism, and then we start collecting, don't we? We start collecting experiences, good and bad, stuff that's useful and stuff that's not. And sometimes that stuff begins to weigh us down, and you'd be surprised, if you really took a critical look at your life, how much stuff you have accumulated in here. What that means is sometimes we have to go through that stuff. Because what happens to us is that we get weighed down. We get weighed down by things that we don't need to carry with us. People that we need to forgive. Things that are better left forgotten. Baggage that we carry around with us that maybe we're afraid to bring down from the attic because we're worried about the spiders that might be inside of that box. This is the reason why people get into addictions, is because they can't stand to carry the baggage around with them, and so what they do is they throw things on top of it, like spending money or alcohol or drugs or any sort of thing like work or shopping or things. But that stuff is always with us. We can never really cover it up. And before we make our final move, Before we make our final move from this place, it will be required of us to go through all of that stuff. All of that stuff. I remember when my dad was dying 10 years ago, and he told me that everything of his whole life was like a film strip that played out in front of him in his last few weeks. And I believe whether that work is done here on earth or done in the next life in purgatory, we are going to be required, before we make our final home in heaven, to go through all of that stuff. We might as well do it now so that we can find heaven on earth and we don't have to wait until then. But that means opening up those dusty old boxes. That might mean looking at things that have hurt us in the past and finally handing it over to God. You see, Jesus talks about pruning the vine today. And the reason you prune the vine is you get rid of sickness, you get rid of overgrowth. And when we have sickness and overgrowth and all this baggage and things like that, it is impossible for us to bear fruit because we are so busy hauling around that stuff that we are not freed to love the way that we have been designed to love. And so not only is today's gospel a call to simplify our life in terms of material goods, to prune the branches of our own lives, to see where they might not be bearing fruit, but it is also to simplify our spiritual life, to really face the things that we don't want to face, the things that we would rather keep in the tomb. And let me tell you this, my dear friends, is that Jesus is already in the tomb with us. And not only that, but he has rolled away the stone and will redeem whatever is in our hearts. But we must have the grace and the courage and the faith to open those things up and to look at them. And I think that if any of us do that, I know that if any of us do that, we're going to be surprised at what we find. We're going to be surprised at what we find. Just as much as we are surprised as when we move the things that we have discovered in our attics. St. Paul in the first reading is a great example. This is the year of St. Paul. And St. Paul was a guy that had incredible amounts of baggage. He killed Christians. He persecuted the church. He was one who was so legalistic that he used that to crush other people, and he himself was not free. But in that encounter with Jesus Christ and getting knocked off of his horse, all of a sudden in today's first reading, he is now preaching with the zeal of a Christian, the zeal of one who has been freed from his baggage. The way that we do this is simple. We do it through constant contact with Jesus. We do it through constant contact with him here in this place in the Eucharist. We do it back there in that room, in the confessional. Because there is no way you can come into that room with baggage weighing you down and come out feeling anything but free. And that freedom that St. Paul enjoys in the first reading, that fruit that Christ promises that we will bear in the gospel, those clean hearts that the letter to St. John talks about in the second reading, is yours and it's mine. We need not be afraid of the spider webs that might be in our attic. And so bring those things to Jesus and know that they will not ever have to weigh you down again. But you have to be honest with yourself, and rigorously so that you can bring all of the things that you have collected in your past to Jesus. He will help you sort them out, to keep what is good and to give him what is bad, so that he might crucify it and redeem it and bring it to the glory of Easter that we celebrate on this fine day.